What is going on, everybody? Bob's Three-Toed Warriors. It's week one recap, and we're going to talk about, are they a thing? Was it just a fling? I don't know. We're going to have some fun with it, though. Let's go. All right, everybody. It is Tuesday night. It is the live stream show. It's episode 46, I think. And we're going to recap the week one top players, and we're going to talk about the guys that came in, and are they a thing? Are they a fling? Should we be chasing after them for the entire season, or should we just be letting them pass by and let someone else go after them? Maybe trade guys away because this is the best we'll ever see them, or we're going to stash them on our bench and let us see what happens. So we're going to have some fun with it. It's a little different format for me, and I'm gonna go around the room and introduce my guests here. First up on the to my well, I'm looking at it to my right. Brady Bunch points here. Katie, why don't you introduce yourself and where you can be found?
Sure, thanks, Bob. Katie from Under the Helmet, and you can find me on Twitter at ff_Skyler399. I've also been doing a wild series of guest appearances on different shows. I was on the Debbie Delight this week, and if you follow me, you can listen to all the variety of different shows that I'm on. I'm going to be on the couch with Kyle on Thursday, and that'll be interesting. A little bit of therapy, fantasy therapy with Kyle on Thursday night.
Sometimes we need that, don't we?
Yes, that's true.
All right. Josh, how about yourself? Where can you find you? And what
I'm on Twitter at RealFantasyTL. You can also catch me every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Man, Bill McCarthy at Super Duper Flex. We do the fantasy timeline. We literally just scour Twitter. We talk about what people are putting on there. We argue. We have a good time. We have some drinks and just a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Let's kick it over to Detroit Beastie. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you guys and catch up with those of you that I've already talked to, like I-80 Sports, been on the show before. You can find me. It's pretty easy at Detroit Beastie. Everything you need to know about me and what I do is there. Bottom of the Barrel is out now, pinned on my profile. That's my football DFS article for the week. Was on fire last weekend and trying to carry over the momentum for week 2.
Love it. The other Bob, hit us up.
The other Bob, you can find us at I80_sports. You can find all our separate Twitters, I80_sports, NHL, MLB. They're all on there. You can find us at I80sports.com or youtube.com/I80sports.
Nice. All right, and I can be found on Twitter at Bob's Three-Toed, on YouTube at Bob's Three-Toed Warriors, where you can see our pretty faces right now, and Facebook group as the Word on Streets Facebook group. So shows are pretty much every day but Monday during the week, and the live streams are on Tuesdays. So let's get into the action. Why don't we start with wide receiver? There were some definite interesting finishes going on there. So we're not really going to go too deep into the players that did what they were supposed to do, even if they had a little bigger game than they were supposed to do. It's more about those players that surprised us. Either they did oddly great or oddly terrible. So Devontae Adams having a huge 27-point game. Not bad, finishing number 1. Okay, cool. He was drafted number 1, number 2. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Let's talk about Mr. Adam Thielen. He came in looking at the wrong rankings here. He came in standard. No, thank you. Half PPR. He came in. Let's skip him. Let's go to Calvin Ridley, who came in second over Julio Jones and had a huge day with 29.4 half PPR. I'm using half PPR points for those following along. You can season the taste, add a little, take away a little, depending on what format you play in. And this doesn't include any crazy bonuses if you have those. But important part is Calvin Ridley coming in second. Is this a thing?
Yes.
This season for him, or is this a 1 week fling? So I got a quick yes out of Bob over here.
It is a yes. The worse the Falcons defense is, the better all the pass catching options on our team. And just when you think Falcons defense has hit rock bottom, they get even worse. I love it. Calvin Ridley is like Julio Jones, all the upside, and he scores touchdowns.
And he scores touchdowns. That is a hashtag fact, Mr. Yeah, he does like to do that. Anybody else disagree with that, or at least feel he's going to have a really strong season, or not have a strong season? Anybody disagree with that? I'm with it. I don't know if he stays up there at number 2, but I definitely think he can have a great season. All right, got some yeses there. Boom. Adam Thielen.
He's absolutely going to have a good season.
All right, dig it. Adam Thielen at number 3, coming in with 28 points. Huge week for him out there in Minnesota, acting like he is the man in town.
It's a thing if he stays healthy. I mean, he proved it. What was that, 2018? He was 9 straight games of 100-plus yards. I mean, health has been his biggest thing. So if he stays healthy, it's a thing.
Sure. His health thing last year was the hamstring, if I'm not mistaken, there, which probably, well, for most of us, it's not an ongoing thing, but sometimes it is. But up there, having a big year. Anybody else dispute that?
It's a thing. It's a thing.
All right. Got a couple things already. This is crazy. All right. Number 4, Darius Slayton. Holy hell. Darius Slayton at number 4, 25 points. Had himself a huge week on that Giants team. Saquon did not. We'll come back to that later. But he thinks Slayton can keep that up.
Yes. Market.
Damn.
Market.
Big play Slay.
Big play Slay. Are you willing to put him in as your number 1, number 2? Is he going to be consistent for you?
I have Ridley and Slayton as my wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 in my home league, and I absolutely love it. I'm in New York, so maybe that's a homer pick, but they're going to be throwing the ball again. We talked about Calvin Ridley. Great wide receivers on bad defenses is just my wheelhouse. I just hit it over and over and over. Team that's going to be throwing the ball 4 quarters every game.
And not to mention, they've got a horrible offensive line. And Daniel Jones will be running for his life, throwing to guys like Slay all day.
Yep, whoever can get open, right?
Let's talk about this for 2 seconds, if I
Sure.
could. So Golden Tate was inactive, right? Evan Ingram didn't do a thing. I believe he was targeted 6 times, but he didn't do much with the ball. As you guys said, and we'll get to it, Saquon Barkley didn't do much. He had 1 yard, negative yards, something like that.
Yeah, we can get to that now. That's fine. Yeah.
So, I mean, is it a thing or is it a fling? He's somewhere in between, if that makes sense. I don't think that Slayton's going to get 9 targets a game. He's surely not going to put up 100 yards a game. He's not going to score 2 touchdowns a game, but he's somewhere, in between all of that. 5 to 6 targets, 4 catches, 5 catches, 50, 60 yards. That's his floor. I mean, we know what his upside was yesterday. That's his upside. Is it possible that we've seen his best game of the season already? Only 1 weekend? I doubt it, but it could happen. I know I'm kind of leaving it open for interpretation here because, as I said, we're somewhere in between. I can't make a judgment one way or another, so I'm going to keep it right down the middle here and let it play out.
Sure. And the fun thing with week 1 is that it's super easy to overreact to stuff. Everybody probably ran out and grabbed Sammy Watkins last year, and it's probably going to run out and grab him again this year. So
for Darius Slayton, if I can, he's the only pure wide receiver on that team. We know what Sterling Shepard is. He's the slot guy. He's the short guy. Golden Tate is better catching the ball behind the line of scrimmage than ahead of him. Darius Slayton is the downfield guy. And the fact that he could even be connected to that offensive line is going to have to get a little bit better because he's running 40 yards down the field. You saw him on that one play. I think Darius Slayton has a ton of huge upside. He is just a baller. You overreact. Get him on your team.
Okay.
Well, the time for that is over, I guess. But you should have drafted him.
Let's talk about another guy that I feel very similar to Mr. Darius Slayton. That's Mr. Robbie Anderson, who came in 5th with 22 points. He had 115 yards on 6 receptions, 8 targets, and a 75-yard touchdown because he is able to do that at any given time, at any given week. And he's also able to almost ghost you in a given week as well. But is he a thing or was it just a fling this week?
It's a fling. He's like a lottery ticket scratcher. Every time you buy one, you don't know if you're going to hit big or you're going to win $1, right? This is what Robbie Anderson does, and that's fine. Everybody on earth knows that this is what he does, so people temper their expectations for him week to week. He's the prototypical boomer bust guy. He's the poster boy for boomer bust. He boomed really big over the weekend, and he's not going to catch a 75-yard touchdown every game. But he has that in him, 3, maybe 4 games a season, and even that's ambitious. So it's a fling. That's all I'm doing with it.
Josh, you're nodding your head pretty hard there.
Yeah, I mean, Beastie nailed it. I mean, yeah, he's going to give you 2 or 3 of these 50-plus yard touchdowns during the season. Problem is that you're not going to know when to play him. And the 3 weeks, 4 weeks that you try to play him, he's probably going to be 2 for 18, and you're going to be pissed off that you did it. And then the weeks that you have him on your bench, he's going to be, 3 for 120 and a touchdown, and you're going to be pissed that you had him on your bench. So it's a fling. I mean, yeah, he'll get you these games about 3 times during the season. You're just never going to know when it is.
He may be a fling, but he's a fling that I'm more than glad to keep on my bench and keep an eye on and see, because if he can beat out Curtis Samuel and he can be and he can have that connection, it's not a bad thing. And I think he played with nope, that's a backup quarterback. Just kidding. Played with the coach, I think in college. That's what it was. And the backup quarterback, not the starting quarterback. So, all right, let's slide over to number 6. Woo! Somebody drop a nuclear bomb. That's DeAndre Hopkins. He had a huge target day. 16 targets, 14 receptions for 151 yards. No touchdown to go with it. Otherwise, he would have just killed it. So much for the Arizona team spreading that ball around. He was looking like Hopkins of the Texans. So I don't think we really need to talk much about that one, other than maybe the targets come down, but you add in a touchdown and it balances out, right?
It's a thing. I mean, I don't think anybody on earth thinks that this was a one-time performance. The guy's an all-pro wide receiver. Right?
Yeah, I read it and realized that. Yeah. All right, Juju. Is Juju back? He got 21.9 points for this team. 100, caught every ball. He got 69 yards. Nice. 2 touchdowns. That's a little heavy. So is Juju back?
It's not about Juju being back. Juju was never gone. Ben Roethlisberger was gone.
That's fair.
Ben Roethlisberger was gone. Ben Roethlisberger's back as long as he stays there. The commentators last night, when Ben Roethlisberger went on that little 9-yard run, were like, "Oh, he looks like a 14-year-old kid again. Oh, he looks great. He looked like an old man hobble. I want to get him a walker. He had these little tennis balls on the bottom." I don't know if he can do it for 16, but while it goes, I'm going to ride.
I agree.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, temper your expectations here. Not to sound rude or like a jerk, but I honestly, again, it's only been 1 week, so we don't know what we're working with, seeing how, a lot of these teams are kind of working it out as they go, like DeAndre Hopkins getting all those targets. They had a plan in place to establish dominance with DeAndre Hopkins on their team. And when it comes to Juju Smith-Schuster, we just saw yesterday some other guys step up, Benny Snell, James Washington. So there's other parts here, but we know Ben loves Juju. So as I-80 said, Juju goes as Ben goes. So temper your expectations. But he's a starting wide receiver on your team, bar none.
All right, before we get to the next player, we're going to throw out a couple comments from our viewers that are watching live right now. Eddie A has been on the show before. He says Slayton or Saluton is greater than Anderson, and Danny Dimes is greater than Teddy Bridgewater.
Really went out on a limb on that one, Eddie, huh? Of course.
We appreciate the love and the comments. And then this guy right here, Chris Sternad, I think I know that guy, might be my son, says, "What do you think about CeeDee Lamb and Zach Moss?" I'm going to slide over to the Devi Diva over here. Might have a little thought on these 2 rookies.
CeeDee Lamb, yes. Zach Moss, no. Singletary's going to own that backfield. Lamb is just juice. And I think that Dak Prescott can spread the ball around. I was, as a Dallas fan, a little bit disgusted that they didn't more, but they got to open it up. They've got guns. Let those guns blaze.
Awesome. All right, let's kick it down to wide receiver number 8. This one is a name that you don't see up there usually season long, and that is Jamison Crowder. And I got a hunch I know what Bob's going to say here, so we'll hold off on Bob's. I think it's a classic answer. Just pin right there on that one for Bob. No? All right. What we got for Crowder? Is he a thing or was it a fling?
Yeah, he's a thing. He's a PPR thing. But what I love about Crowder is we all know what he is and what to expect from him. That's nothing more, nothing less. You don't draft Crowder and start him on your starting roster every week, hoping he's going to score 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. We know what he is. He's a PPR stud. He's gold on your team in full PPR leagues. And it's a fantastic commodity to have in a PPR league. Nothing more, nothing less. He's a PPR thing.
Okay. I was thinking he would be one of those things on those teams that have to pass the ball all day long and have nobody to pass it to.
Well, he has no one to pass him the ball either. Sam Darnold is he's like Steve McNair with none of the rushing upside. It's just I don't know what people are seeing, but
so then he's not Steve McNair.
All right. Eddie A says, where do A-Rob and Odell Beckham Jr. end up? Before we go into those two, actually, go ahead and go into those two real quick. A-Rob and Odell Beckham. Where do they end up? I assume they're thinking on the season. Are they going to have good seasons? Because they both had really shaky games this week. So we'll save having to dig deep for them. We'll hit them right now.
OBJ is used to getting shit on. So I don't know why it's surprising to anybody.
I love it.
There's a lot of places I'd like to see A-Rob end up, but I honestly think he's just going to stay there, stuck there.
Yeah, so I was going to cover the news, and I skipped the news because, sometimes you do those kind of things. A-Rob wants to get paid. Now, that's not surprising to anybody. Twitter acts like it's surprising, some people on Twitter. But he had a good year. He got hurt, worked his way around, got over to this team. We got hurt, the first season? He had a great season last year, though.
Yep.
And then and here he is now, wanting to get paid like everybody else. He sees everybody else getting those paychecks, right? Do we think wanting to get paid affects his play in any positive or negative way, unless he becomes a problem child? But some people have distinct feelings on that.
Yeah, I don't think getting paid has anything to do with these are competitors. They're professional athletes. I think they actually statted it out, and there's no statistical difference on a player in a contract year against it. On where they end up, why not just trade them for each other? Just like OBJ for A-Rob. Hey guys, just you're going home on a different plane today. There you go. Problem solved.
Wrong plane. All right. Lev Bell to the IR. He had a hammy. I like the comment afterwards. Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have put him back in after he was hurt.
It's awful.
It is awful. Do you want any part of that backfield?
You know what? If you guys rake me over the coals,
that's zero. Okay.
If you guys rake me over the coals for that, then so be it. But in like a 14+ league, most waivers clear tomorrow in the morning. I'm going to put money on grabbing Josh Adams, their running back there. So it looks like he's going to be in a committee with Frank Gore. I know it's not the sexiest thing on earth, but who knows what'll happen. And for, let's say, $5-7, I think you can get them for that. People are going to bid $10, let's say, in fab leagues. But if you have waiver priority league, I'm not going to blow a high waiver priority for him. But in a fab league, as I've said, I would throw $5-7, and see what you can get. Just like I did with James Robinson in Jacksonville. And no other running back even touched the ball, this weekend. Again, another situation. It's Jacksonville. How sexy is it? But it's a starting running back in the NFL. It's a good depth piece. And I know from what I read yesterday that Adam Gase, who is the worst coach in the league, let's be honest here.
Yes.
He loves Adams. For some reason, he loves Adams. And I firmly believe that in week 2, they're going to give this guy some major runs, see what he's about.
Okay. Katie put up a big either okay sign or 0% in that backfield.
That was a 0. That's a backfield I don't want to own. I just think that, re-signed Kalen Balaj, and they've got LaMichael Pirine that's still injured. And I just think it's going to be up in the air for a long time, and the team stinks, and it's going to be a negative game script. Now, if you can find, if Josh Adams does hit as a PPR back, you know that Frank Gore is going to be more the guy that carries the chains, but it's just the team is, I don't know. I would rather have James Robinson as the lone guy in the backfield than Josh Adams.
Okay. Julio coming in at number 9. We'll leave that one there. Go down to Sammy Watkins, having his Sammy Watkins week 1, coming in at wide receiver 10, 18 points. Is a runaway, stay away, or is it just a player that's actually capable of playing on an offense that's actually capable of scoring?
Run away, run far away.
He's a fling. There's too many mouths to feed, and he's not high on the totem pole. He was this week, but
okay. Let's wrap number 11 and 13 up on this offense that just went insane this week, and that's Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Alan Lazard, who went behind. They went 11 and 13 behind the wide receiver 1, Devontae Adams, who had an insane week this week. Was it just a crazy game against a bad defense made it happen, or is this their quarterback showing that I'm the man? People need to quit drafting these scrub wide quarterbacks in the round 1 and get me some actual players on the field. Are these guys the thing? Just
why
a
not
fling?
both?
That's it. This just in, the Lions are in Green Bay on Sunday. Lions haven't won in Green Bay since like 2014. So I could see a full-blown repeat of what Rodgers did with Lazard, Scantling, and Devontae Adams to the T all over again Sunday.
So you're saying that the Rodgers is probably just as good, if not a little bit better than Trubisky? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
There was a debate at work in the hall about those two quarterbacks, and I think it was a serious debate, or he was just messing with the manager that she was a Green Bay lover. So a little interesting. I don't know. Okay, so we're thinking flings for both of them.
I would like to get a piece of high-powered offenses, and if I have a spot to put on my bench for Scantling or Lazard, if they're out there, I have nothing wrong with taking it. Just know what you're getting your hands on. There has to be a second wide receiver eventually, I guess, on this team, and it's a good offense. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback. I have nothing wrong with a couple bucks, $6, $12. Not a problem to get a piece of a high-powered offense if you're not exposed elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of times when you're looking at these guys who week 1, week 2 had those real big blow-up games, you're probably not cutting guys that you drafted in those top rounds for them. It's the end of the bench where you're looking, okay, I took a shot on this guy. He doesn't look like what I hope he'd look like in the offense. Let me take a shot over here on this guy. We're not telling you to go cut Julio Jones for these people.
Who's living on the train tracks?
I was hitting the mute button trying to find it. It was Bob. Okay.
Wonderful Bergenfield, New Jersey.
I was heading to you next and then over to Katie.
I saw that you muted my mic, and I'm like, he thinks I got a train running through my house right now. That's not me.
I know. I saw Josh look down too because
I was like, whoa.
I was like, I didn't even say anything, man.
I was offended for a moment. You muting me.
It's good. Good times. All right. John Brown comes in 14. Anthony Miller 16. These guys you're chasing after here?
Anthony Miller, yes. John Brown, no.
Anybody else?
I like John Brown. I think Stephon Diggs is taking some coverage off of him, and I'm not going to be surprised to see a few more games like this from John Brown this season. I mean, I don't know if, Sean McDermott is going to let Josh Allen kind of throw the ball like he did, or if it was just, beat up on the Jets day, but if they keep letting him throw the ball a little bit, I think John Brown is going to be good this season.
I've always looked at John Brown like a boom or bust guy, home run or nothing when he was in Arizona, 75-yard touchdown or nothing. In terms of Anthony Miller, just what I saw yesterday in Detroit, Miller looked fantastic in the fourth quarter, catching everything thrown his way, moving the chains. So in terms of like fantasy football and especially NFL football, we know that fantasy football is a real fickle bitch. Excuse my language. And it's what have you done for me lately? Now I know John Brown did something for us lately, and Anthony Miller did too. I just see Miller putting it together, you know, at a more sustained clip here.
So here's a question for you, because it's coming up a lot. I've noticed is that certain fantasy managers often have an inherent draft strategy, lineup strategy in them. Detroit Beastie sounds a little more boom bust adverse, where you don't as much want that on your roster. And I could be totally wrong there. It's just what I'm picking up, and that's okay. When y'all are setting your lineups and you've got your typical start two, running back, wide receiver, and then one or maybe two flex, is there a certain point where you guys are like, give me all boom bust players, give me no boom bust players, give me one or two? Is there a typical style for any of you guys? And I'll go around the room. I'll fly over to Katie first, just because it's easy to go around the horn.
Sure. So running backs for the floor with good ceiling, and then that gives me the opportunity to put in the more boom bust wide receivers. I want wide receivers that can put up numbers, and I'm willing to take the weeks where they don't, because hopefully I've got enough of a portfolio with my other wide receivers that if two of them hit and one of them doesn't, and I got my running backs, I'm usually pretty good right there.
Okay. Josh, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm with Katie on the running backs. I usually like those high floor running backs. It's nice to have a guy that you know is going to get you, 10 that spot. You don't really have to worry about it. But usually, like wide receiver 1, I want to have that high floor too. But then when it gets to wide receiver 2, and especially if I'm in a multiple flex league, that's where I like to throw out those boom bust guys and just throw them in there and know that if you can match up with me in the starting lineup, I have at least that boom potential in the flex spots to maybe win the week.
Over to Detroit.
Yeah, I'm with what they said already, right? So it depends on my roster configuration, and I'm not the biggest fan of how can I put this? Discussing my roster, trying to help somebody else with their roster. When you see a trade, thoughts on this trade, and the first question is, well, it depends on what your roster looks like, right? Because depending on your roster, how many flex spots do you have? How many wide receivers do you start? On your team. You picked it up, and you're absolutely right, Bob. I'm not a fan of those boomer bust guys. Maybe I'm old school. Maybe I'm getting, cranky in my old age, get off my lawn kind of guy. But I would like to think we all want safe floor people, right? And there's no in between, because I don't want to have a guy in my roster, like in my last flex spot, like John Brown, where 1 week he'll put up 76 yards and a touchdown, and then the next 3 weeks in a row he puts up goose eggs. I don't like that. I'd rather have even keel on my roster. I know that's a safe way to play, but it has its risks and it has its warrants in terms of boom or bust guys.
Yeah, there's a certain phrase, and I just went blank on it. Playing safe, you're gonna lose. How's it go, Katie?
Oh,
no risk it, no biscuit.
There's another one too.
As Mr. Miyagi used to say, you go side of road safe, other side of road safe. You go in the middle, squish just like bug.
All right, over to you, the other Bob.
Yeah, so when it comes to setting lineups, I generally go for the safer players, the ones who are going to contribute every single week. But when it comes to those flex spots, most likely those are the players who are playing at 4:00 or Monday night anyway, when I already have an idea of what is going on with my team and whether I need the boomer bust or with the higher floor players. So generally speaking, I'm going to go with the higher floor players. But if maybe my opponent has a better roster. I don't know how that happened, but maybe he does. It happens, and you got to go, okay, man, I got to beat the snot out of this guy. I need somebody who's going to give me 30 points.
Sure. For myself, I am going totally off mental probability. Do I see this boom player having the boom week against this team, against this defense? now it's going to sway me towards putting him in. I still, like everyone else, like to have that nice floor, but I'm definitely leaning towards, is it realistic against these guys? Early in the season is so tough. We don't know what the defense really looked like. So it's just so tough to go at it and see it. But give us a little further.
Season, we don't even know what the players look like half the time.
Right. Yeah. It was so crazy watching that first slate. So many high-scoring games. I'm like, this is preseason because the defenses don't know what's going on. The offenses are just playing out in yard ball. Well, let's just throw the ball and score. Then you get to that 3:00 slate, and you're like, this is boring as hell. And there's only 3 games, so red zone's like, eh. All right. Let's get out of the anything else I want in the wide receivers. Not really. I could mention, let's go, baby. Corey Davis. We're not leaving here without talking about Corey Davis. I think when Detroit BC was on there doing the Warriors and the Beasts show, also known as My Guys on other people's shows, but Bob's Three-Toe Warriors, Detroit Beasties, Warriors and Beasts. I'm pretty sure he was one of my plant the flag on him guys. Not because I expect him to have a huge year. He finished in a low top 2 wide receiver, but in that top 2 or lower 2, high 3 area, I just felt like he could have a better season this year because I think A.J. Brown's going to get figured out a little. Henry's going to get focused on, and that's what the Broncos did to him, even though we lost, and we should have. We weren't the better team necessarily out there, but anyway, what are y'all's thoughts on Mr. Corey Davis?
I think he's got a soft schedule. He's got a soft schedule this year, and I think that he's capable. I mean, he's finally going to show why he was drafted so early in the first round. He is a talented guy, and Ryan Tannehill is a lot light years better than Mariota, and I think that they finally have made that stability. You also mentioned A.J. Brown's going to get keyed on more. We saw that last night. He's got a pretty good soft schedule, and I think he's a thing.
Right.
You're in for a rude awakening when he catches 2-3 passes next week for 30, 40 yards.
He might.
He's a fling. I mean, we've seen it over a prolonged period of time. How many times have people said, oh, well, if Devontae Parker can break out after 5 years, then Corey Davis can do it. There's just a lot of moving parts, in this offense. And again, it was week 1. I don't want anything to do with Corey Davis.
Do you know he plays in week 2?
Not yet. Who he plays
Jaguars.
Jacksonville.
Against a suspect DB. And
I think I'm good to start him for one more week.
I mean, I think Beastie nailed it, though. Why aren't we calling Corey Davis kind of like the low-budget Sammy Watkins? I mean, he flashes these games, and we go,
fighting words.
This is the Corey Davis year. He's got this. And then at the end of the season, we're crying, and we're trying to figure out why the hell we did it to ourselves. I mean, yeah, could he have 2 or 3 more games like this throughout the course of the season? Sure, but this is the same spiel I said about Robbie Anderson. Yeah. You're not going to know when it happens. You're going to start him on the games like Beastie says, where he goes like 3 for 20, and then you're going to sit him because you're mad at him, and he's going to go, 5 for 100 and a touchdown.
Sure.
I don't want that in my life.
I got
We'll
you.
see, but where you drafted him at, you didn't draft him high, and for that price, you're not going to have him as your wide receiver 1 or 2. You're going to have him in your flex. And matchup, he's got a soft freaking schedule, and he's finally got a decent quarterback. And so,
can I just touch on that for a second? Like, go 360 days away from today in the past. Like, would we be having this conversation? Like, he's tied to a great quarterback, Ryan Tannehill. That would not be happening in September of last year.
I didn't say he was a great quarterback. I said he was great on Mariota. I mean, and that doesn't take much. Kind of like Trubisky or, some of the other guys. It's like,
yeah,
fair enough.
And not to be rude to you, Katie, but it's only 1 week in, but we've been talking about fantasy football for like 6 months. Again, I want to tell you, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm so sick of hearing people say, well, it doesn't matter where you drafted him because he's free and he's cheap. Well, then that makes 30 other people the same amount of free and the same amount of that doesn't take up a roster spot. So I would rather, if he's free, cut him and pick up a Robbie Anderson, Alan Lazard, Anthony Miller, guys like that. If it's one of those last spots that cost me free, I'm constantly moving guys in and out in that position. Let a guy go off like he did last week, then move him out for an Alan Lazard, move him out for an Anthony Miller. Free and where I drafted him doesn't really help me during the season.
You are correct, but when you get them for free, that bottom two, depending on how many roster spots you have, that is your rotational spots where you're taking those shots. And if you felt good about someone going in, or he's on your waiver wire and you can grab him off, and you can pop him in as your wide receiver 3 or 4, your flex, 1 or 2. That's what we're talking about. Get that extra little pop. I just like him for this season. I just wanted to bring him up. I didn't want to start a battle. Kind of did though.
Well, you're right. That show that we did a couple weeks ago, you planted your flag on him, so there's no going off of it, or all your dignity will be taken away from him. So, like it or not, you're stuck with Corey Davis, Bob.
I am, and even in the next weeks when he has bad weeks, I'll say it. All right, M. Valela 2001 says love Crowder and PPR. Yes, we do as well. And here's a question from FF Swirly on Twitter. He says Hollywood with a question mark every week, wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3. Y'all like him for a wide receiver 2 or a 3 for the season?
Yes.
I think Bob said this 15 minutes ago when we were talking about Green Bay. I want guys that are in good offenses. I want every piece of Kansas City possible. I want every piece of Baltimore possible. And aside from Mark Andrews, obviously he's a tight end, Hollywood Brown is their wide receiver 1. So I want any and all of Hollywood Brown week in and week out.
All right, let's flip over to some running backs because we're having a good time here. So we have Josh Jacobs coming in first, having a crazy week. We'll leave that alone. Christian McCaffrey had a great week. Zeke had a great week. Then we get down some names that you may never have heard of if you haven't been playing fantasy football a while or paying attention. And that is Mr. Malcolm Brown, Mr. Naheem Hines, Raheem Mostert, and then finally Chris Carson and Dalvin Cook. So let's talk about this group of Malcolm Brown, Naheem Hines, Raheem Mostert. Some of these guys are on the waiver wire right now. People are thinking about picking him up right now while they're watching this show. They're like, should I go grab this guy and put him in that bottom rotational spot? Malcolm Brown. And matter of fact, you talk about Malcolm Brown, let's also talk about just that backfield in general because they come up somewhere in here. So any thoughts on that backfield?
That's gonna be a headache for probably the first 6 weeks of the season. I mean, you saw Malcolm Brown out there, but I mean, it wasn't like Cam Akers was sitting on the bench. He got plenty of run. You even saw some Darrell Henderson out there. I mean, until the coaching staff decides that it's Cam Akers' job and his alone, man, that backfield is going to cause some fits when you're trying to figure out who you want to start and who you want to keep on the bench.
Also, is Darrell Henderson even fully healthy yet and making him enough of an interference in that backfield? That's another question I have. I don't think he really is yet, being more limited myself.
I don't think even when he is healthy, he's going to do too much in that backfield anyway. So
I'm with Josh here. It's going to be a headache. I do love Malcolm Brown week 2 against Philly. They look like Swiss cheese. Over the weekend, they let Washington put up 17 or 20 unanswered points on them. So until shown or proven otherwise, I'm going to have Malcolm Brown in my starting roster, and I think it's going to end for me too after.
Let's flip over to Naheem Hines, who is my running back waiver wire 1 pickup, and that's Naheem Hines. Especially if you're in any kind of half or especially full PPR. Now with Marlon Mack removed from the picture, it should give a nice clear 1-2 punch with Taylor and that cream rising to the top one way or another. Katie got my reference there. So how do I guess Naheem Hines? Obviously, probably not going to be running back number 5 every week, but do we see him being a running back you're comfortable starting as your RB2, RB3 in and out? Is he a thing or was it just a fling?
He's a thing. Phillip Rivers loves him. The PPR back.
Eckler.
And if anybody has a type, Phillip Rivers has a type. I mean, how many kids does he have? Like when he has something he likes, he sticks with it and
Sticks in it.
Wow.
yeah, that's true. So Nyheim Hines, and all I could think of every time I heard them say Nyheim Hines with the carry, Nyheim Hines. Remember when Ferris Bueller was absent 19
Bueller.
times?
19 times. Got it.
Every
Okay.
time. 19 times. That's all I could hear in my head every time.
All right. Anybody hating on Nyheim Hines? I don't think so.
Yeah, absolutely not.
All right, cool. We'll skip away from there. We'll go over to a guy that I don't love. I haven't loved him all season. He's been an anti-flag planter for me, and that's Raheem Mostert. Is he a thing, or was it just a fling? I'm calling him a fling, but I'll let y'all go.
Nailed it. It's a fling.
He's a thing. I love it. I planted my flag on him.
All right, here we go.
On your show a couple weeks ago. He handled the bulk of the work, at running back. Jerick McKinnon doesn't scare me much. Mostert had this hype, correct me if I'm wrong, about a month or two ago. He climbed up draft boards and his ADP absolutely exploded. And I see no reason why that would diminish, coming into week 2, where I expect him to get anywhere between 16 to 20 carries. So Raheem Mostert is a thing for me, and that's not going to change anytime soon. I don't know how you could call a starting running back on a team like San Francisco just a fling. We saw him do it last season. The guy can hit 20 miles an hour down the sideline. He's faster than hell, and I love that they're going to feed him. A couple receptions, 18 carries a week. Sign me up.
I'm calling him a fling because it's San Francisco. We've seen Jeff Wilson have weeks. We've seen Matt Breida have weeks. I mean, if we look at these stats, I mean, he had a good game, but it was a 78-yard touchdown catch that kind of saved his day.
It made his day. Didn't save his day. It made his day.
Well, it saved the day of fantasy owners
Yeah.
that started him, because before that was going on, it was nothing doing. And you can say what you want about Jet McKinnon and, the other guys there, but they're going to get their run. That's what Shanahan does. He puts all these guys out there. Again, it's one of those messy backfields, and I don't want it. There's going to be a lot of weeks that we are upset that, Jeff Wilson vultured 2 touchdowns, and, Jerick McKinnon has 8 receptions for 80, and Raheem Mostert is averaging, 3.5 yards a carry. So,
I'm pretty sure Bob is about to chew up the microphone there.
So, this is a nice mic. I don't chew on this one. Okay. Over the last 6 weeks of last season, he averaged 12 carries for 70 yards and 1.2 touchdowns. Over the last 6 weeks, touchdown, 2 touchdowns. That's what he put up. We saw what we did in the playoffs. He had a 29 carry game for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns against Green Bay. So not only did he light up the whole second half of last season, he kept it going. He is going to be touchdown dependent. He's going to need that big hit, but he's doing it. He's doing it. He's succeeding with the big hits, with the touchdowns. I'm going to ride this train.
He's extremely effective in the passing game, right? And George Kittle stubbed his knee. We don't know if he's going to play. That just opens up more targets and touches. I know that's on.
That's a nice point that's a nice point to add to the running game. Sure.
It only helped. It only ups his value, right? So I'm with Bob here. The other Bob.
Bob number 1 or Bob number 2?
Wait, who's number 2?
I'm going to call Bob 1, the host of the show.
There we go. All right. If y'all weren't paying attention on the notes there, Eddie A was with you guys and against me. Katie, was I alone in that vote?
I didn't vote.
I know. That's why I asked if I was alone.
I'm abstaining.
That's fair. Switzerland. Damn Switzerland. All right. Let's go past those guys. Huh?
That is one of my nicknames, Switzerland.
That's funny. I knew that, I'm sure. All right. At 7, Carson. 8, Cook, 9, Kamara, 10, Edwards. These are names that we totally expect to have a good week. It's just a couple names popped up in front of them. That's fine. David Johnson at number 11. That's one we're talking about. That's one that was drafted in the, 4th round for a lot of people. And people were not expecting much, if anything. They said he was Oompa Loompa or something like that last season. He looked pretty good to me, especially on a yards per carry. And it wasn't just one break-off run for 78 yards that made it happen. It was a lot of good little, 5 yards, 6 yards, 9 yards, just chugging at him. What do you guys think about David Johnson after the season?
I fully expect him to get about 19 total targets and touches, like let's say 15 or 16 rushing attempts and then 4 or 5 receptions here. And with that kind of work, he'll put up 15 points on your fantasy team, 20 if it's a full point PPR league. So I'm all ahead for David Johnson. I know in terms of week 2, they're home playing Baltimore. Baltimore's defense is very young and hungry, and they're all over the place, but that's not going to scare me off of David Johnson, both this coming week and long term.
Duke Johnson is hurt.
Right.
David Johnson owns that backfield. He looks great. I think him and Will Fuller, which we didn't mention during the wide receiver, I'm going to throw him in now, is the real thing. Will Fuller looks like he's really rounded out his game. He's more of, his route tree is
not just bombs.
Yeah, not just bombs. And he's capable of moving the chains, and David Johnson is too. And Deshaun Watson needs somebody that he can rely on, and those two guys are going to really help.
Yeah, I can see that completely. All right. Aaron Jones comes in number 12. That's fine. Peyton Barber, number 13. Get that out of here. That was on what? 4 carries and 2 of them for touchdowns or something? Ridiculously gross.
17 carries. Or excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah. He had more than 4 carries, didn't he?
Yeah, 17.
He had 17 total, yeah.
But
he did. He did for an average of 1.7.
That's awful. Yeah, that's an
average of 1.7.
But he scored
We're
twice.
talking the Washington football team also. So
we are. So
the expectations are low.
Yeah, I was staying away from that backfield because I thought they wouldn't be a high-scoring backfield or offense, I should say. So was this just a thing, a Fling thing? Is he a thing? Was it just Fling?
Major Fling.
Fling over there.
So touchdown to
bunch of head nodding.
I don't want him, but I'm not sure it was a fling. It might have been like a couple night stand. A fling turns into like maybe a week, like a long weekend.
A summer fling.
Yeah, there you go. Antonio Gibson was never the guy, and people who were treating it like, we have our episode that we do every week 1 on my show, and it's called the way too early victory laps, where we talk about where we're right after only 1 week. And the one thing I threw out there, I said backfields on garbage teams, because no one wanted a piece of Fournette, who's a very good running back. He gets shipped out of town, and people are like piranhas on whatever's left in that Jacksonville backfield. The same thing for Washington. Everyone wants a piece of the Washington football team. They don't even have a name. That backfield, Gibson 9 carries, Peyton Barber 17. Like, it's just not good things going on. I don't want him, but I think Peyton Barber might be. All
right,
the best option on a bad team.
Yeah. Let's hit a couple more before we flip positions, as it's already 48 minutes into this bad boy. All right, we got J.K. Dobbins in Baltimore. Is he taking over for Ingram? We got Adrian Peterson out in Detroit. What the heck? Josh Kelly, we've already kind of mentioned, and I think we can leave it at those guys and Benny Snell. So, start with Dobbins real quick. Is he already taking over, or is it just not a Melvin Ingram week? I thought it was kind of crazy. Melvin Ingram had as little production as he did.
Are you talking the linebacker Melvin Ingram, or
he don't know what he's talking about?
Exactly. I mean, this isn't an IDP show, Bob.
One, Detroit BC's on here with IDP, and y'all know you've been on the show before, Detroit, and you've been on here, Katie. Bob, I have a name disease. Drink. If I say the name wrong, y'all gotta bail me out and drink.
All right, I got apple juice.
There we go. I'm okay with that.
My water is out. I'm dry.
All right. I must have messed up on a lot of names already. All right. Moving on from there, J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, we all knew. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to know that J.K. Dobbins is clearly the heir apparent to Mark Ingram there. That's why they drafted him. And we knew that it was going to happen sometime this season. I'm sure we've all, in one way or another, discussed this internally or discussed this with someone else. And,
so are you saying it's happened already?
I think so. I think it's happening a lot quicker than we thought it was going to happen. The kid looks that good. The talent is there. None of that was ever in question. But Mark Ingram is tried and true. He's an OG. He's a stud. He still gets it done. But he is in his year 31 age season. And as I said, I hate to repeat myself, but Dobbins was drafted to be the next guy there. And maybe they already like what they see. So it's backseat for you, Melvin Ingram.
Bob over there. Saw you leaning in for one.
And I'll talk about the Detroit backfield. With Swift having the injury and missing a lot of time preseason, he is going to be the guy. And he got a lot of run, a lot of snaps. But Peterson early in the season will be somebody that's fairly reliable.
Looks
but
good.
Swift, cream rises to the top. Swift will own that backfield before people can blink.
And to piggyback off of what Katie said, I mean, Beastie, I'm not trying to hurt feelings here, but Matt Stafford went to Swift to try to ice that game. Swift, he dropped the pass and everything, but Matt Stafford felt comfortable enough to go to Swift with the game on the line to score that touchdown. AP is going to do his thing for a couple of weeks while Swift gets back to 100%, but once he's a full go, and RIP Kerryon Johnson.
Yeah, you're not hurting my feelings. I'm 35 years old. I've lived my life like this in terms of loving the Lions. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. So something clicked in practice over the summer with Stafford and Swift, and I like that you said that. I didn't even think of it that way. That he was that comfortable with less than 20 seconds left or 30 seconds, whatever it was, to go to him in such a dire situation.
And just, this has absolutely nothing to do with it, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. They're both former Georgia Bulldogs.
That's it.
That's good. That's it from who gave me that?
What's that?
Somebody was it. That's it. That's the connection.
That's it.
There you go. All right. So Benny Snell had 113 yards, 5.9 per carry. He had a nice little week for himself. Is he gonna take over that backfield? Is Connor gonna be out for a couple hours and be back this week? He's gonna be out for a couple weeks. Is it not gonna matter? He's gonna take over the backfield. What y'all's feelings real quick on Mr. Benny Snell? Is he worth chasing those waiver wire bucks after? I'm not doing it myself unless I really lost. Unless my guys all hit IR and I'm chasing after it. I don't know if I'm willing to do it myself. Absolutely do it or absolutely don't do it.
No, absolutely, Adam. And listen, I've talked about Connor all season. I love the guy's work ethic. I love his positive attitude. He's just a good guy, right? But that doesn't get you fantasy points. That doesn't help you win anything. And I mean, I'm the last one to dog on a player or put them down for anything that happens on the field, let's say. And I don't know what's going on, but he was looking for his helmet. They wouldn't give him his helmet. Was that a head injury? I know it was an ankle injury, but it's all bad. And I feel terrible for James Conner. He just can't, get it together and sustain any sort of health here, but with staying on the field. So if you own James Conner, you should probably have already backed him up with Benny Snell, and you won't have to be chasing the waiver wire. I know the Pittsburgh backfield isn't like, oh my God, I need any and all pieces of it, but it's still a professional, backfield.
Well, go ahead, Bob.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So for me, it's also not only the workload. James Conner had 6 rushes for 9 yards. Giants cannot do a lot of things well, but they can actually get at the run in certain places. They have Leonard Williams, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Dexter Lawrence on that defensive line. They cannot get at a quarterback, but they can stop the run pretty well. And that's exactly what they did at the beginning of this game. And it was not until Snell got those, started getting carries, started getting into the work that it kind of really changed what this whole offense was doing. I mean, Giants were ahead for, the first half of this game until, that final drive. But I don't think that it's to sleep on just workload. I think Benny Snell showed that he's a better running back last night than James Conner. Health aside.
Well, and they do like to use one running back pretty hard. So that's also a nice little factor. When you said offense, that was the first time I heard your New York accent pop out, just so you know there. All right, let's flip over to quarterbacks. I'm just going to read down the top 20 or so of standings, and we just want to talk about one or two quarterbacks, one or two tight ends before the end of the show that really stood out as a question mark. So Russell Wilson cooked at number 1. Aaron Rodgers, number 2, Josh Allen, number 3, Lamar Jackson, number 4, Kyler Murray, number 5, Cam at 6, Matt Ryan at 7. Oh, that does say Mitchell Trubisky. I just make sure I was reading that right. At number 8, Kirk Cousins at number 9, Brady at 10, Bennett 11, Deshaun at 12, Gardner at 13. And, of course, everybody expected Pat Mahomes at 14. We'll just stop right there. That's actually plenty for quarterbacks. You don't start that many of them. I think I noticed one guy that stands out in there with a big old question mark. So that's Trubisky. We should definitely mention. Anybody else we want to talk about in there?
I'm not starting Trubisky unless he's playing the Lions, and he only plays them twice a year. If Trubisky was to play the Lions 16 games in a week, he would have 48 passing touchdowns, but he doesn't. So,
what do you think about the New York Giants defense, Atlanta defense?
No,
that's his next 2 weeks.
Bob just told us they don't do things well, but they stop the run.
Well, and, he's a passer, so that's a good thing.
Well, if you're stopping the run, that opens other things up. It shuts other things down. I don't know.
Sure, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Atlanta, they like to get thrown on a little. Indy, Tampa Bay, Carolina. He's got a good early season matchup.
I'll be honest with you, Bob. I wasn't prepared to have a Mitchell Trubisky discussion this evening, or I would have prepared because I feel like I just look like a silly dumbass when you're like,
no, you're fine. You're fine.
Well, it's against New York. Well, they stopped the run, and I wasn't prepared for Mitchell Trubisky talk.
You're good. So if anybody who doesn't know, Detroit BC usually comes with a page filled out, highlighted, 20 different colors. So he is a very well, or no cards.
I have
lately.
no cards today.
He's been running out of notepads. So
yeah.
So are you guys wanting to take a early season here flyer if you're streaming on him? How about that?
No.
That's a hard no. No. Oh, I'm on my own. All right. We have to find a way to bet that.
Not only do I not want him on my team, Bob, if we are in a league together, I would like to see you start him.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. I'd like to place him on your roster.
Place him.
Okay, get you set my roster for me. I like it. Jill, I think that's Jill. It says JIL. Says, is the Raiders offense for real? Josh Jacobs is, I can tell you that. They have a lot of good. Go ahead, Katie.
No, I think it is. And I think, I can't. How bad was Henry Ruggs hurt? He came back in the game, didn't he?
Do believe so.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited. Brian Edwards didn't really get started, but the running game, Josh Jacobs is tremendous. I think Derek Carr is a little bit underrated, but I think that their new home, they're going to. Their coaching staff seems to have things working for them.
Yeah, I think that's a good offense. I think the Carolina defense highlighted that a little bit, but they're gonna cook, as you were saying earlier, with Russ, and Brian Edwards is gonna get it going. I think that dude's gonna be a stud in a couple of years, and they still have Darren Waller, Josh Jacobs obviously can get in the end zone at will. Yeah, they're good. We're going to be talking about them a lot in a few weeks and all of their assets.
Right. Real quick before we flip over to two tight ends, let's talk about Cam Newton. He had about 25 points. 12 of those points were off those 2 touchdowns because he was being greedy, doing what Cam does, getting those touchdowns. You got to respect him. He gets them. And in fantasy football, we don't care about greed. We want it. Greed's good. Do we trust him to be the passer when he doesn't get 2 touchdowns? Because he didn't really have that great of a week, but the floor was definitely there.
Yes, I could see that this coming week. I could see a total flip flop where he had all the carries and the rushing touchdowns, but he only had 150 passing yards or something.
155, yeah. Yep.
100 something like that. So this coming week, he's going to have 240 passing yards and only 30 or 40 rushing yards. So he's going to. This is what he's going to do all season, but it's going to be fantastic any way you slice it.
Yeah, they're still working on installing the full playbook with him. It's still a new offense. It's still he's coming back from injury, but he looked great. And I think N'Keal Harry's going to get stronger. He's got a pretty good rapport with Julian Edelman. Tight end is going to be weak all year, but between his rushing upside, James White in the passing game going, I think Belichick is just going to continue to use him to the best of changing things up from week to week. It's going to be, as BC said, it's going to be just a different week next week.
I was watching that game, and we said before in our preview show, I said Cam Newton is not going to be a great quarterback because they're not going to let him run the ball. They're going to be concerned that he's taking hits and all this stuff. By the end of the first quarter, I said, wow, no one in New England cares about this man's safety. They were just letting him run all over the field. So I'm not convinced he's going to play all 16 games, to be honest, because he was taking hits like he was a kid in college again, to be honest. It looked good. I was surprised. I saw them completely take the training wheels off and just use him for what he's got. But again, that may not be a multi-season thing. I really saw, I was like cringing some of the plays that he was just taking hits and just letting loose. All
right, let's spin through the tight ends before we run out of here. Tight ends, number 1, Mark Andrews, not a huge surprise. Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, Njoku, who's out for the season, so we'll skip him. Logan Thomas, O.J. Howard, not Gronk, Jonnu Smith, Jordan Atkins, Jared Cook, and Greg, bring out a Walker, Olsen. Oh, hold on. If we're going to say him, we might as well say number 13, Jimmy Graham. So you want to talk about a list of players that's the world of a tight end, right? It takes a touchdown to make it happen, and everybody down to Greg Olsen had 1 touchdown. Mark Andrews had 2. But Logan Thomas, 8 targets. Jonnu Smith, 7 targets. Howard, 6 targets. Graham, 7. And Dallas Goedert, 9. That's a lot of targets on some guys. So real quick, is there one guy there that we're like, this is a real deal, or this guy is total fraud, get him out of there?
It's Mark Andrews, and it's not close. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. This guy is going to be fantastic this season. I fully have him for double-digit touchdowns this year. And, I don't even think that's a stretch to say that. People aren't going to call me crazy for saying Mark Andrews is going to score 10-plus touchdowns. That offense is going to be sick, and it's only going to get better as the season goes along. Mark Andrews is 23, 24, clearly a safety blanket, if you want to call him that, over the sideline in the middle of the field. So anytime a play breaks down, if that even happens with Lamar as your quarterback, Mark Andrews is going to be the guy. And I want any and all shares of Mark Andrews I can get my hands on.
Absolutely. That's the guy you're going to have to pay up for, though. Let's talk about these guys that are
not if you draft
possibly still on the waiver wire and not drafted, or they're pretty low down here that you can still trade for, that don't have the expensive price tag of an Andrews or a Kelce. Any of these guys, you just say Noah Fant, is that what you said?
I said not if you drafted him, in terms of
not
Mark
if you drafted
Andrews.
him. Gotcha.
I think it's possible that Fant or Logan Thomas are on the waiver wire, and I'd put money down on either one of those. I think that Dwayne Haskins is going to feed Thomas. They don't have a super strong receiving core in Washington. Noah Fant has already got a connection with Drew Lock, and especially with Sutton being injured, when Sutton gets back, I still think Fant is so athletic. He's going to make things happen. And they're both, I think, somebody I would target.
I'd agree with that. Anybody else say they love here, or kind of hate? But
I love Darren Waller long term too. Sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
I'd go with Goddard here. Watched that entire game, and it literally looked like Zach Ertz just handed him the torch and said, "All right, it's yours now." Apparently, Zach Ertz is arguing with management on the sidelines about his contract during practices. That looks like, he's not going to be around next year in Philadelphia. And Carson Wentz just took advantage. I mean, first half it looked like Goddard was going to be, going off for 150 or 200 yards. And then obviously, that Eagles offense just stalled out in the second half. But he looked good. He got open on every route that he ran. He was physically dominating people. I think he's legit, and I think he's going to be Carson Wentz's guy for the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Do you have someone there, Bob? You're good?
I'm good.
Okay. Sometimes you're lean. I can't tell. Is he about to sit in there? All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for the show. There was some good stuff there. Hopefully I helped you guys who are looking at your waiver wire, trying to figure out who should I go and steal today, who's the real deal, who should I look at maybe starting up on Thursday because I got a little more confidence in them or maybe a little less confidence in them and I don't want to put them in. So hopefully it helps. There's also this show will be replayed tomorrow for those who didn't catch it live, who's now hearing me say replayed tomorrow because it's today. So ignore what I just said. And then the start sit shows will be on Thursday and Friday. Let's kick it over for a little farewell and where you can be found and what you got going on. One last time. Over to you, Katie.
All right. So they call me the diva of Debbie. I absolutely love college football. So glad to see both the NFL and college football start up. Can't wait for the first SEC games to start. And I'm in a college fantasy football league for the first time that drafts on this coming Saturday. Looking forward to that. But you can find me on Twitter at FF_Skyler399. And Under the Helmet podcast comes out every Wednesday. And I'll be around also on other podcasts as a guest this week, next week. And thank you. It was so much fun.
Absolutely. Josh, over to you, sir.
First of all, appreciate it, Bob. It was awesome being on. You can find me on Twitter at RealFantasyTL. Me and my main man, Bill McCarthy, at Super Duper Flex. We do the fantasy timeline every Wednesday at 9. We do the same thing you do. We stream this live on YouTube and in podcast form. And we just scour Twitter. We talk about a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, but people tweet. People are trying to figure out, what's going on with Antonio Gibson, stuff like that. We pull your tweets, we discuss them, and we go at it. So you can find us. You can find us in any of those places.
Little Jay Leno headlines.
Yeah, pretty much.
I like it. All right, Detroit Beastie.
You could find me on Twitter at Detroit Beastie, bottom of the barrel. My NFL DFS article is out now. It's pinned on my profile. And tomorrow, look for my entire offensive rankings and my full-blown IDP rankings will be out on Fantasy Pros tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening. So come find me, DM me, follow me. Let's chat about anything and everything.
Oh, yeah, very active on the Twitters. All right, Bob, the other Bob, over to you, buddy.
Okay, thanks a lot. You can find me at I80_sports. You can find us at i80sports.com. We have NFL and MLS soccer, our two wheelhouses. We launched a college football podcast this year, and we got some NHL guys going at it too. So, just always expanding. Thanks for having us on here. Just helping get the word out. Great talking to all of you, and have a great weekend. 2 more days till week 2.
That's right. That's right. Be here before we know it. I can be found on Twitter at Bob3Toad, on YouTube at Bob3Toad Warriors. And I really appreciate all these wonderful guests coming on here, having a good time, giving you all the information to help you out with your league. There's so many questions, especially early in the season. There's really questions all throughout the season. But there's so much confusion at the beginning of the season of what's real, what's not. And hopefully we entertained you and shed a little more light on that. So y'all make sure you hit the waiver wire tonight. Set your lineups and dominate your opponents. Until next show, see ya. Football's back, baby!